Okay, so I saw a video of a Canadian guy planning to move his whole family to the Philippines, and he's reacting to everything that's happening here right now in the Philippines. You know, the fuel crisis, the food concerns, is all of it is basically relax, stop panicking. The Philippines is going to be fine. It's a food producing country. It has rice, it has fish, has bananas, and people making content about this are just fear mongering and causing panic. So I watched it, I watched the video, and I want to respond to it, not because I think he is completely wrong, not because I think he's wrong, but because I think he's also not completely right either. So some of what he said sounds reasonable on the surface, but if you actually live here, if you know how this country really works, the picture is a lot more complicated than that. So basically, in his video, he acknowledged the fuel situation is real, but he thinks content creators talking about this are just fear mongering, like shame on them, they're causing unnecessary panic. Maybe some, maybe they're exaggerating. He says the Philippines is a food producing country, like I said, that we grow our own rice, that we're a tropical country surrounded by fish. So food shortage is not something we should worry about. He even compares it to Canada. Like when prices go up there, people just switch what they eat. Like instead of eating beef, they eat chicken, something like that. Okay, so let's talk about that. If what people talk about is just fear mongering, why did President Marcos sign an executive order declaring a national state of emergency, energy emergency? Why did the Philippine government itself use the words imminent danger of critically low energy supply? The Philippines was the first country in the entire world to declare a national energy emergency, the first one. And I wasn't shocked at all because it makes complete sense. And I'll tell you why. When a global crisis hits, which countries feel it first? The ones with strong systems and reserves, or the ones with weak ones? The Philippines has been dealing with deep structural problems for decades: corruption, mismanagement, public funds that were supposed to build reserves and infrastructure, gone. And corruption here doesn't just mean stolen money, it means programs, it means system and programs that never reached the people who needed them. Infrastructure that was funded but never built. Agricultural systems that were supposed to develop over decades but didn't, because the budget disappeared somewhere between Manila and the provinces. So, of course, we were the first to declare an emergency. This is the complete logic. It's the completely logical result of a system that was never properly built. It makes total sense. Now, if some content creators are talking about food shortages here in the Philippines, is it possible to happen? Let's talk about the food production. Uh, I understand why people think this way. The Philippines looks like it should be food self-sufficient. You know, tropical, warm all year, rich soil, thousands of islands. From the outside, it really does look that way. But the actual data tells a completely different story. So the Philippines is one of the biggest rice importers in the world. In 2026, we are expected to import between 3.6 and 3.8 million metric tons of rice. And in 2024, we signed a 5-year agreement with Vietnam to lock in 1.5 to 2 million metric tons every single year. We signed a multi-year contract to keep importing rice because we cannot produce enough on our own. And it's not just rice, you know, onions, garlic, potatoes. Remember the onion crisis last year? I don't know if it's last year, I don't remember anymore, or 2023, when the Philippine onions became more expensive than imported ones, when onions cost more than chicken. It's very revealing. The irony is the Philippines exports bananas, pineapples, mangoes. We send tropical fruits to other countries. But we import our rice from Vietnam and other vegetables from other places. We export bananas, we import rice. That's where we are right now. We import the most basic food that we see on the table. People eat it 3 times a day, even without dish, even without chicken, without anything, but rice is there. Because some people eat rice just with the fish sauce and oil, or rice with salt, rice with coffee. So rice is the most important food in the Philippines, and we import a huge amount of that from other countries. And this didn't happen by accident. Agricultural land has been disappearing for decades, converted into subdivisions, malls, industrial zones, especially in Luzon. Prime farmlands are gone. Now, I want to be fair. The aging farmer problem is not unique to the Philippines. Japan has the same issue. Average Japanese farmer is 60 years old. More than half of rice growers there are over 70. Young Japanese people don't want to farm either. Same problem, but completely different reasons. In Japan, young people choose to not farm because they have better options. Strong economy, good jobs, technology careers, and the Japanese government still responds, with subsidies, smart agriculture investments, financial incentives to keep people in the sector. Here in the Philippines, we cannot blame the young people. We can't even blame the old farmers who gave up because the system gave them nothing. A lot a lot of provinces in the Philippines has no proper irrigation, no decent farm to market roads, no price support. One typhoon away from losing an entire year of income with no safety net. The roads in some provinces are so bad that crops rot before reaching the market. So sometimes it is actually cheaper to import vegetables from Vietnam or other countries than to source them from a Filipino farmer 2 provinces away. That is a system that failed its own farmers completely. And when farming is made that difficult for that long, selling your land to a developer starts to look like the only rational decision. And when farmers are desperate enough to sell, someone is always there to buy. And another example, if you think that is bad, let me tell you about sugar in the Philippines. I know sugar is not important, but I just want to tell you the system. Specifically in Negros, they produce massive amount of sugarcane. So Negros alone is nearly half of the country's entire sugar output. You would think sugar here is cheap, but Filipinos pay more than double than the global market price for sugar for something we produce right here. So there is a government agency in the Philippines, the SRA, that controls sugar imports and supply. Repeatedly accused of being captured by the same trading families it's supposed to regulate. Traders hoard stocks, manufacture artificial shortages, release supply at extortionate prices, government warehouse raids, Senate investigations, allegations of government-sponsored smuggling at the highest level of bureaucracy, and nothing lasting ever came from any of it. The sugar farmers stay poor, trapped in a colonial era hacienda system, landless, indebted, and because also of an old US export obligation, we ship sugar abroad even during domestic shortages. So farmers stay poor, consumers pays double, a small circle of politically connected traders extract billions. Not despite government regulation, but precisely because of it. So it's not about sugar. I'm repeating again. It's this what I mean when I say corruption is not just stolen money. Sometimes the most damaging corruption is the kind that is fully legal, fully documented, completely in the open, and completely untouchable. So these are the real reasons why production is dying in the country. This is the real reason that when the world sneezes, we are the first to catch a fever. So the system is so broken here that nothing is working, nothing comes out. And when there is a global crisis, we get hit first and hard. Now, the fish. So he mentioned about Philippines is surrounded by billions of fish, like, yeah, the fishing industry here in the Philippines. But let me tell you that even before this fuel crisis, the fish were already running out. 88% of Philippine fish stocks are already overfished or depleted. Catch has been falling every year since 2010. Fishermen who pulled up 50 kilos a day in the 1970s now average 5 kilos. That is a 90% drop. I don't want to exaggerate things. I did my research and like many times, and this is what I read, this is what I got. So now the question of will the Philippines actually have a food shortage if this war gets worse? So the Philippines probably won't run out of food physically. Rice stocks exist. Vietnam supply lines are in place. A sudden famine scenario is unlikely in the near term, in the near future, but no shortage and food secure are not the same thing. What's already happening and will get worse if this war drags on is a price shock that effectively creates a shortage for the Filipinos. Food is on the shelf, they just can't buy it. That is a real food crisis, even if the statistics don't call it one. And there are specific things to watch as well. The Philippines imports most of its fertilizers, which is petrochemical based. Our 5-year rice agreement assumes Vietnam can and will keep exporting. But Vietnam is also a fuel-dependent agricultural economy. If their costs spike or they prioritize domestic supply, we have very limited alternatives at scale. And typhoon season, let's talk about typhoon season. When a major storm hitting the Philippines, central Luzon, when fuel is expensive, farm roads are already bad, and government fiscal space is stretched, would not just damage crops, it would collapse the logistics chain at the worst possible moment. So the timeline matters. A 2 to 3 month disruption, the Philippines probably absorbs it painfully, but survives. A 6 month or longer closure of the Strait of Hormuz, combined with a bad typhoon season, that is when you start seeing real supply gaps. Not just price pressure, the food crisis here is less about whether food exists and more about whether the people who need it can afford it. And for the poor families, that threshold has already been crossed. So he also compared this to Canadians switching from beef to chicken. And I want to be careful here because I don't want to dismiss what Canadians are going through. Canada actually has the highest food inflation among G7 nations right now, right? Canadians are paying 20 to 25% more for basic groceries than in 2020. Food banks visits have gone up more than 90% since 2019. For lower income Canadians, food already takes up close to 40% of their income. So Canada is also struggling. I'm not dismissing that. But here's the difference. In Canada, families are being pushed down from a level of stability. They had a cushion, and that cushion is getting thinner. That is serious. Here in the Philippines, for the majority of families, there was never a cushion to begin with. Already spending 50 to 60% or more of their income on food before any of this happened. Not being pushed down from somewhere comfortable, already at the very bottom. And now the floor is dropping further. So I love this country. I live here. I'm still here. I chose to be here and I'm not leaving. But living here also means being honest about it. The Philippines is a beautiful country with incredibly resilient people, but it is also a country that was never given the systems, the infrastructure, or the honest leadership it deserved. And because of that, it has no real buffers. When the world goes through a crisis, we feel it fast and we feel it hard. That is not, I don't, for me, that's not fear mongering if you talk about these things, on social media. I mean, for us, there is really something to worry. It is really something to be worried about because we know how this country runs and we know how it is here. So, if you're already living here, plan for it, adjust your budget, be smart, and if you're thinking about moving here, it can still be a great place to live. But come with your eyes open, make sure you're financially prepared because even though people say it's a cheap country, if you want to live comfortably, it's still not as cheap as you might expect. And come knowing that when global events happen, this country feels them faster. And I mean, than almost anywhere else. That's why I make these videos, not to scare you, not to scare anyone. It's to prepare you. It's to so that you are updated. It's that so you know what's happening. So yeah, there's a big difference between like fear mongering and just being honest of the reality in the Philippines. You know what, guys? I have so many friends who went to other Southeast Asian countries while there's war in the Middle East, like right now. Like they were saying, like in Vietnam, for example, they were saying that the prices in Vietnam did not change at all. And then they removed the tax on fuel. So I didn't fact check this, but I just heard it from my friends who went there. And everyone is there literally, like they're in Sikihor and then now they're all in Vietnam. Like, what's in Vietnam? Now I'm considering I really want to go to Vietnam and see how it is there compared to the Philippines, or like go to Thailand and see how is it in Thailand and Philippines. Right now the the flights going to those countries are actually cheaper than domestic flights in the Philippines. Make it make sense. So yeah, what do you think? Are you feeling the effects? If you're in the Philippines, are you feeling it? Are you feeling the same effects in your country right now? Drop them in the comments. If you haven't seen my last video about why the Philippines is so vulnerable to global crisis, go watch that next. Everything connects. And if you're here for honest content, subscribe. I'm not going anywhere. Or maybe I'll go to Vietnam soon. And I will keep telling it like it is. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.